Hello out there and Happy New Year. My name is Dr. Jim Lowe and this is Tomlyn's Facebook Live chat. I am the Technical Services Veterinarian for Tomlyn USA and just wanted to visit with you a little bit about today as we go into the new year, about some new habits, some things to think about, things we might have forgotten as we move forward with our companions into this new year. Please be sure to like us on Facebook and please also post any questions you may have. We'll try to get to as many as we can. We're going to start out discussing a few topics, but again, please make sure you post those questions. There will be a drawing again for $50 of free product at the end. So, apologize if I'm a little bit late. I was having to escort Biggie the Bulldog out of my office. He normally likes to sleep right up under my desk, and unfortunately I'm getting more and more reports on our conference calls that his snoring is quite audible. So if you hear him whining, that's because he's right outside my door, but he's just going to have to sit tight for just a few minutes. So here we go. Really wanted to talk about scheduling annual trips to your veterinarian, updating them on their vaccinations. We are increasingly in the veterinary profession coming to be a more proactive type profession versus reactive, meaning we really want to address issues that animals may be having, discover those problems much earlier, and the only way that can occur is if you take your animal to the veterinarian regularly for full checkups, for full updating on vaccinations. It's the only way. Oftentimes potentially catastrophic problems can be caught early. So it's no different than you and I. The earlier we see medical help, the earlier problems are detected, the more quickly effective therapies can be implemented. As far as vaccinations, we absolutely want to make sure these animals are fully vaccinated, if for no other reason than many districts, many cities, many townships have regulations. I've heard many times, well, my animal never goes anywhere, I don't want to give them any vaccinations. And I think that's a pretty, we're not really realizing sometimes even rabies vaccination and the protection it affords not only the public, but your pet as well, should there ever be an unfortunate incident where a bite occurs. So make sure you schedule those checks. Many clinics now are offering wellness packages, meaning where they have a full set of tests and exams they can do for you to fully evaluate your animal once or twice yearly. And it is so much better than coming in on an emergency and a problem that could have been detected months to years earlier is already present, and where we may be limited on what we can do further for them. Along those same lines, we really want to make sure pets' tags are current. Many of you have considered, and I highly recommend, microchipping. We want to make sure those microchips are still where they were placed. Some may not understand, but that microchip can travel under the skin. So where it may have been initially inserted and where it was read and shown to be active, that chip may have moved. So we want to make sure that chip is still functioning, that it is in the location that it was placed in, and that all is well should there be a time when it is necessary to identify your pet because it became separated or lost from the family. Another key thing, and I think what's increasingly becoming important in veterinary medicine, is veterinary insurance. There are a number of programs out there, companies now offering pet insurance that covers everything from just catastrophic events to simple things like vaccinations and routine checkups, as we just discussed. Just again, like in us, we hope we never have to use it except for routine things. But if there is one major injury, orthopedic cases can run into the thousands of dollars. Severe illnesses and trips to emergency clinics can run into the thousands of dollars. So to have veterinary care insurance for that protection can certainly alleviate a lot of financial burden that the family can experience. And unfortunately, can also help with some decisions that are sometimes had to be made for a family pet because the economics of the situation. So make sure you visit. There are many pet insurance companies out there. Your veterinarian can offer some alternatives that you might want to visit about, but it is increasingly becoming available as technology increases, as the quality and advancements in veterinary medicine occur. Unfortunately, some of these advancements come with a quite higher price tag. Another thing was a question, or what we want to talk about, was just routine evaluation of your pet. Certainly, I think it's very easy to not look at our pet as much as just love on them and not really look specifically for any potential issues. The ears are a huge thing. We really want to make sure we take a good look at those ears, make sure there's not been any scratching at those ears. Take a quick smell of those ears to make sure there's not any odor in those ears. It's important to remember that the ears are not a sterile environment. There are always a number of little bugs floating around in those ears. The ears is a dark hole, so to speak, and so it's a perfect place for organisms to grow. So it's very important we keep those ears clean so the air can circulate through there, so they can stay dry, that they're very clean and dry. And Tomlyn does offer a product, the ear cleansing solution, and this product can be used weekly, and this product will dry those ears very nicely. It also removes a lot of that debris. But even more importantly, it'll slightly acidify that ear canal. Many of these organisms that always live in these ears don't like an acidic environment. So when we can create a more ominous environment, shall we say, for those organisms, they're much more likely to not overgrow. So the ear cleansing solution is a really nice, easy, clean smelling thing. We can squirt down in those ears, massage them out, and allow those dogs to shake and remove those materials from their ears. So again, routine checking those ears before we see those red, painful ears that we may have experienced with our dogs with ear infections. Same things with their eyes. Check their eyes for any excessive debris, runniness, crustiness, scratching at them. Those can all potentially be indicative of potential issues. Check that coat really nicely. Make sure there's no abnormal lumps, bumps, swellings that you hadn't noticed before. Again, it's oftentimes very easily through just being around our animals on a daily basis that we don't really take a more critical look. So we want to make sure we do that. Make sure we're not picking up on anything that would require an evaluation by your veterinarian. And that goes along the same way with even grooming. Especially our cats, we want to make sure we groom these cats regularly, those long-haired varieties. The more we can groom these cats, the more we're likely to detect some issues as far as knots, skin problems, heaven forbid fleas, things like that. We certainly know if we can cut down on that amount of hair, amount of dander being generated by cats, there's also less likelihood that they're going to pick up hairballs. Certainly the hairball remedy by Tomlyn is a really nice way to potentially allow that hair to be balled up to pass through the GI tract versus being spit back out on the kitchen floor, which we're all too familiar with. So routine evaluation, routine grooming, kind of get in a habit of it. You know, every weekend, every Sunday morning, something like that. Just give a quick critical look to your animal to make sure all is well. And if we're unsure, then schedule that appointment to get an evaluation to make sure there's nothing that needs to be worried about further. As far as feeding our pets, certainly just as in people, some animals may have had a resolution made for them by their owners that it's time to lose a little bit of weight. So certainly first and foremost, we want to make sure they're on a good quality diet. One preferably veterinary recommended, and there are any number of them out there. Lots of fine quality foods out there. For many, it's simply preference, or it's the economics of what we can or cannot afford. But your veterinarian can give you any number of options that are specifically formulated for the age or the age group of your animal. Meaning there are puppy formulas that are much more formulated for rapidly growing animals versus senior formulas where we're not nearly as concerned about protein and weight gain. So again, depending on the age requirements, make sure that diet you're on meets the needs of the animal at the age they are at. Remember when looking at feeding recommendations that those recommendations on those bags can sometimes be a little bit generous. Let's be honest, you know, dog food companies sell dog food, so they're going to be generous in how much they might recommend. These are recommendations only. Sometimes these recommendations are made based on feeding trials in animals that may have already been fixed. If an animal's been fixed, their caloric requirements are much less. So we really want to make sure we really look. When it says 1 cup, that means 1 cooking measuring cup. I've seen many people bring out, Doc, I only feed them 1 cup a day, and it's the 16, 20 ouncer you get at the ballpark. And so make sure it's a measuring cup. Your veterinarian can provide those as well to make sure we're specifically measuring them. And again, the amount of food we're feeding our animal is coupled with the amount of exercise they're getting. You know, certainly we have to burn more calories than we're taking in, so do our pets. So make sure we're feeding a recommended amount, knowing there's usually a wide range and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Let's also take into account the type of exercise we may be giving these animals. So make sure that your animal is healthy, that your veterinary approves, and we might consider a little bit of exercise, light walking, something like that. Certainly if this animal is a little bit older and we're worried there may already be some joint issues, the joint and hip formula from Tomlyn might be a good recommendation, providing high levels of glucosamine and chondroitin that are going to support the collagen and the cartilage of that animal. Has high levels of omega-3s, fish oils, that tend to relieve discomfort, improve flexibility and mobility as well. There's also an amino acid in there to support the muscles as these animals are exercising more. So make sure we're on the right diet, fed the right amount, and on the right plane of exercise, and that's just a good habit for you, me, and your pets to get into moving into 2017 to make sure we're all in optimal condition. Another issue is table scraps, especially over the holidays. Got a ton of questions about this. My feelings, and my wife may beg to disagree, you know, because I've been accused of doing it every now and then, but I try not to give Biggie any scraps. You know, for one thing, I think it promotes an animal that likes to beg, and for some that's okay, but for some that may not be optimal, especially if we have friends over. Secondly, it tends to make them migrate to the kitchen because they figure out that's where lots of good food scraps are, and certainly the kitchen can be a dangerous place for pets as there's lots of hot things and plates and people moving around, and so we would just rather they not do that. First and foremost, so many of the table scraps that we try to slip to our pets can be very, very harmful. They tend to be excessively greasy and salty, and the systems of dogs and cats are just not made to tolerate such things. And it can create a syndrome in dogs known as pancreatitis, the pancreas being the organ that is responsible for metabolizing all these fats and greases. And this organ can become extremely and horribly inflamed, and these animals can become critically ill very, very quickly. So, my rule of thumb is no table scraps, though. Okay, my wife is right. I do sneak one every now and then. If it's a piece of vegetable, something like that, yeah, chances are we're fine. But it's really a better habit not to. I've had clients, suggested to clients to keep a little bit of their kibble in a little cookie jar on the counter and give them that if they're sitting there begging for something. Certainly frozen vegetables, frozen beans are options. There are good dog treats out there as long as they're meeting the caloric requirements or staying within those caloric bounds that we've already set for our animal, and that would be a good option. All they see you is giving them a treat, solidifying that human-animal bond, being the hero. The fact that it's not human food is okay. So let's make sure we really err on the side of making sure our pets stay healthy and not doing anything that could potentially be harmful for them. Let's see what else is on our list today. Oral health. You know, certainly oral health, just as in you and I, again, is very, very important. And if we haven't done it as yet, it's really important when we're doing those weekly critical evaluations of our animals that we look at those teeth. It's very easy to identify teeth that are dirty. It's very easy to identify red gums. It's really easy to identify breath that may be less than optimal, shall we say. So any of those signs can be significant indications of potential dental disease, and always recommend a dental examination to make sure where we're at. It may just be an issue where you can begin to brush this animal's teeth, where there may be rinses available, or these animals may potentially need a dental procedure under anesthesia, just as you and I would get, where we can then begin with a clean slate after that dental procedure, and your veterinarian can make recommendations moving forward as far as how best to treat those teeth to keep them from getting that buildup and issue again. Do have some few questions coming on board. I do greatly appreciate it. Let me see what I can do to answer some of these. Question about feeding senior dogs, and absolutely, there's lots of new diets out there for senior dogs. Really, I think that's something we really want to visit with our veterinarian about. That's something you can talk to them because they know the current health status of your pet. There are senior diets now that have added benefits of joint support. And these older dogs many times have joint issues, and so some of these diets can help support that as well. There's lots of diets now that have antioxidants in them, because we know that antioxidants can remove some of those free radicals that can cause damage to the joints and brains of older animals. So certainly a specific diet for senior animals, as recommended by your veterinarian based on where your senior pet is absolutely recommended. Question about how many checkups for cats on a yearly basis. Certainly I think an annual is the bare minimum. Many facilities now are recommending twice annually, and that's probably a very good idea. Again, the more proactive we can be in addressing issues when they're much smaller in nature, the much more likelihood of a positive outcome and the ability to create a long and healthy life for those cats. Let's see here. Now then, kind of shifting gears a little bit, but asking a little bit about fear and anxiety. My dog is scared of the wind gusts, and how do I help him feel more comfortable outside? Well, certainly because, and congratulations to you, this was an adoption. That's great to hear. Unfortunately, you're dealing with an animal that was already, unfortunately, may have had a bad experience. Maybe he was kept outside all the time and was in the wind a lot, or maybe he was in a doghouse that got blown over. There was probably something that happened, that occurred, that created this anxiety in him. So first and foremost, you might consider some sort of anxiety product. Tomlyn has the Relax and Calm Chews. This is a chew that contains L-tryptophan, which is a precursor for serotonin. This is a neurotransmitter that just makes him feel better, perhaps a little bit sedate. It also has a product in there to make his stomach feel a little bit better. A lot of what it's going to be is behavior modification, meaning getting him out for small periods of time in maybe lighter gusts of wind, rewarding him immensely and taking him right back in, and allowing him to continue to associate good feelings, good treats, your care, and a little bit of gust of wind as not bad things. So a lot of behavior modification. Certainly a supplement such as Relax and Calm can help as well, and him knowing that you're there to protect him at all times. So desensitization, which can often take a long time, especially when you're dealing with an animal that may have already had a bad experience. So good luck to you on that, and again, thank you for adopting that pet. A question about respiratory health in cats. Here, when I have the heater on in my house, my cats seem to sneeze more. Can that be environmentally related? Absolutely. Sometimes with the heater going, we release or stir up more of the natural amounts of house dust and dander that are in a house. Sometimes with heaters on, just because of the humidity in the air, that can be more drying to the upper airways of certain animals. So these may be animals that we want to keep away from that heater. Just some people need a humidifier when the heaters are on because their airways tend to dry. Certainly we know that cats can often benefit from a supplement like L-lysine. L-lysine is in the immune support product from Tomlyn. And that may help. Certainly there has been some indication that lysine supplementation in cats that have respiratory issues can be beneficial in supporting that airway just a little bit more. Right now, I think that's about it. I hope I covered everything that was on the list and got to all your questions. Oops, one more, excuse me. Best way to prevent ear infections in my beagle, he gets them frequently. Absolutely, and it goes back to what we talked about. If we deal with beagles alone, beagles have those nice floppy ears, and we have floppy ears that cover up the ear hole. That ear hole is a dark place that tends to stay warm, that tends to stay damp. We have a normal amount of bacteria, yeast that grow in there anyway. So when it gets a little too wet, a little too dark, and there's not a lot of air flowing through them because of those beagle ears, that's just an incubator for infection. So first and foremost, it's going to be very, very important that we address the environment of that ear on a weekly, if not more, basis. The ear cleansing solution, the veterinary approved ear solution from Tomlyn would be perfect for a situation like that. Again, it has a drying agent in it, so we can remove a lot of that moisture. It has a product in there that's going to remove a lot of the debris and the wax, so again, we get a nice flow of air into those ears. And most importantly, it has those acids in there to slightly acidify that ear. Yeast especially don't like acidic environments, so what we're trying to do on a weekly to bi-weekly basis in cleaning that ear out is create an environment that is much less hospitable to those bugs. So prevention is the way to go, first and foremost. Now certainly if even with that we continue to have issues, then there are certainly other contributing factors such as allergies and endocrine problems that your veterinarian can visit with you about as well. But thank you for y'all's questions. Again, there will be a drawing for some free product. Really appreciate y'all liking us and participating. It's my pleasure to do this, and I'm sure we will be talking very soon. Thank you very much.